Welcome back, everybody, to the first of our 3 North American Online Arena Qualifier Cups. We've had a lot of great matches so far, some fairly epic back-and-forth matches so far, and we have plenty more still coming your way.
Yeah, and what a way to open the day. I mean, you can't say too much about wanting more exciting matches than that. Great teams so far. I really loved those last matches. Both teams did such a great job. Of course, Is Butter a Carb just doing a great job and coming out on top. Let's look at the brackets right now so we can give you guys a quick update. Of course, we had Shake It Off versus Nihao. Shake It Off winning 2-0 over Nihao, so that knocks them out. Of course, if you're just tuning in, there is no losers bracket for this. It's one and done. So we are having best of 3 in our round of 8. Of course, then GOML losing 2-1 to Is Butter a Carb. So we'll have Shake It Off versus Is Butter a Carb in a best of 5 later. But right now we have Luminosity versus Tony Del Bronx coming up. And of course, our map after that, which I can't wait for this match, is going to be Tempo Storm versus Hands Up. It's going to be a bunch of great matches today. Great players competing. So excited.
Yeah, definitely. And this next match that we're about to have here, this Luminosity versus Tony Del Bronx, you're saying the Tempo Storm versus Hands Up match. That's going to be a great one. But this, I'm really excited for this match too, because Luminosity, there's a lot of very well-known names on here. Danny Carey, who has got lots of BlizzCon experience at this point. Vanguards, who's just been around forever and always performing very, very well. There's Smexon and Maldiva. All of these players have a ton of tournament experience. So it's going to be really, really great to see how they match up against Tony Del Bronx, who also has actually a significant amount of tournament experience. They've won a couple of GCD Cups as well. That, of course, that team is made up of Lhasa, of Tazlol, who I'm actually not entirely familiar with that player. I'm not sure if he's been playing for them for very long or not. And then Tony and Supatees will be those players. So yeah, I'm actually really excited for this match.
Taz will be their druid if they need to put Supatees on to Moonkin or Warlock. So we'll have to see if he'll be playing in this. I'm really excited for this matchup. Of course, we are going to be starting on in the Grand Arena for this best of 3. So it is going to be blind picks by both teams, so they have no idea what composition they're going to be facing.
However, we know what compositions they'll be facing, and so we can go ahead and talk about that very quickly here. Luminosity, they're going to be playing Enhancement Shaman, Affliction Warlock, and Restoration Druid. And I believe that's going to be Vanguards on the Enhancement Shaman. We'll find out here very shortly as soon as we get into this match. It better be
Vanguards on Enhanced Shaman.
He was ranked first on the North American ladder, #1 on the North American ladder as this Enhancement Shaman just a couple of days ago. So really looking forward to see how he plays here. Of course, they'll be going up against Tony Del Bronx, who's also playing an Enhancement Shaman. And they're going to be playing Restoration Druid and Moonkin Druid. So we are actually seeing Supatees bring in that thunder from down under I was talking about earlier. And we're going to have to see how well this is going to work out for them.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Of course, Shamguard's on that Enhanced Shaman. Just doing a great job always of playing Enhance. You see him swap back and forth between Enhance and Ret a lot, depending on what his team needs. So you have that support caster, or that support melee that he just plays so well. So no, I wouldn't say anything too interesting spec-wise out of any member of these teams. You know, it's something that you would expect. You know, Supatees definitely going to be using Force of Nature instead of Incarnation, so that'll be a thing to watch. But immediately as you see Supatees just getting into the action, you already using his first Star Surge coming out as Supatees he just waddles his way in. Look at that, just running down his target. It looks like they are going to be going on to Maldiva straight from the start. Supatees trying to just cast as many spells as he can, getting lots of instant procs because Shamguards is going to be following him. We have an Ascendance from Shamguard already.
Yeah, and as you said, it's important to note that when you're using the Balanced Druid as your kill target, you are giving them lots of procs for those instant Starfires. So that can be very, very dangerous to actually go on the Moonkin Druid. I'm actually really surprised that they haven't been going on Tony Jr. a little bit more here. It looks like Tony Jr. may be having a little bit of trouble, or possibly that's just on my end. We'll have to see how that works out for them here. If Tony Jr. looks like he may be having a little bit of a connection issue.
So these teams it looks like they are going to wait for each other to see if Tony Jr. can come back from this. Again, as you can see, we'll go through their specs right now real quick. Of course, Shamguards, you know, very standard. This is exactly what he's going to be playing. There's nothing too surprising at all for this. This is pretty standard. Maldiva, of course, again, pretty standard. Everything that we're seeing out of these is what we would expect. Now, Danny Carey, of course, using the Nature's Vigil instead of what we saw last match, and we were able to see the Heart of the Wild. And of course, yep, everything's looking pretty standard out of both teams. Of course, if we had to compare, we have Shamguards and Tony Jr. Again, Call of the Elements versus Totemic Projection. So Shamguards really thinks he's going to land those clutch capacitors.
Super T is always the entertainer, actually trying to get himself a selfie with Tony Jr. here as this is going on. So hopefully Tony Jr. will be able to get back into this match here very, very shortly. They will have to lose this round if he's not able to get back in. Oh, but actually he just jumped around. It looks like he might be coming back in. Awesome. I appreciate the sportsmanship coming out of Luminosity as well to say, you know what, we'll give your guy a second to see if he can reconnect. He's obviously disconnected, so hopefully they will be able to get back in here. But yeah, definitely the way that the rules work, just so everyone is aware in terms of the disconnect rules, if it happens in the middle of a match like this, that is a loss. It is counted as a loss, just because we didn't want to have to get into too much of the, well, he disconnected at this point, or did he fake the disconnect, etc. Like, we just once the match has started, basically, if there is a disconnect, that is a loss, and it's sort of on the players to make sure that their internet connections are stable. But hopefully Tony Jr. will be able to reconnect back in here, and we can see this match played out to its fullest extent.
Yeah, I mean, right from the start, it was pretty exciting. We saw a lot of cooldowns used really early. Shamguards, as you can see, his Ascendance is just coming back up right now, so that means he used it immediately. But also, we have the Celestial Alignment used by Super T's, also pretty early. But there was no, there we go. Looks like Tony Jr. is going to be kicked out of the match. At that point, of course, we have all of these guys on their gladiator mounts. But doesn't look good for Tony Del Bronx straight from the start with Tony Jr. getting disconnected. That means that the first match is going to be going to Luminosity.
Yep, and we will make sure to double check with the admins and make sure that that is the case, but I believe that it is. And so we will be getting, hopefully as soon as Tony can get his internet connection sorted out, we will be getting back into the games here very, very shortly. It's always unfortunate when stuff like this happens. It is an online qualifier cup, which means that absolutely everybody, there's many sort of, I guess, points of failure is a way to put it, in terms of, like, I accidentally kicked my power strip or something like that, and just individual players having internet connection issues. So it's unfortunate, but as a wise caster once said, I believe it was Tasteless actually, used to say that technology is the vehicle of esports. And so we're only as good as the technology that's currently available to us. Yeah, but hopefully we'll get this sorted out and we'll be able to get back into these matches here very shortly.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where Tony is from, but if he's in the southwest right now anywhere, there are gigantic thunderstorms everywhere. I saw some pictures coming out of Evo, and they were saying that there were huge thunderstorm warnings above Las Vegas right now, and even in LA we're seeing some thunderstorms. So hopefully that's not what's happening to him right now. But I was really excited for this match. You know, it's unfortunate that we had a first disconnect, you know, out of Tony from that. It'll be interesting to see how this comp plays out with Maldiva on Warlock and Shamguards, of course, on Enhanced, because we do believe I do believe that what's going to happen is Maldiva is really going to spread out that pressure, and then Shamguards is going to be chain purging those Druid Hots. So we'll have to see if that's what happens. You know, we saw the Ascendance used early, so they're probably not relying on that for the kill. But again, like I said before, enhanced damage is so much higher than last season.
Yeah. Yeah, and one important thing, I guess, to point out, one little advantage of having the 4-player rosters this time around is if for whatever reason Tony Jr. is just not able to get back online, they can, of course, sub in another player, and they will be able to continue playing with 3. So I highly expect that we will have some more amazing matches for you here very, very shortly. We're just trying to find out right now if he will be able to get back on.
So it looks like their 4th member is going to be Losa, playing that Warrior. We've seen him play both Arms and Fury lately, so that is something that they have as their option. And again, you know, he's a 5-time Warrior Gladiator with 1 rank 1 so far. Looks like that was last season. So the players are able to use that 5 minute of time to discuss, maybe choose strategy, or if they get disconnected, they have that 5 minutes that they can use. That's just to keep the tournament flowing. But even at live tournaments, we've always given them that time in between rounds. Sometimes if you guys watch, the team members will stand up and walk away to just stand around and discuss the strat, what went well, what they could change, gemming options back then, of course, enchants now, and the type of gear that you use, since there's so many options.
Yeah, and it can even be good to just get up and walk around for just a second, like get the blood flowing again. You sit in one position for too long, you start to kind of relax a little bit too much. It can be good to get up and walk around a little bit and get your body back moving again. But like Jared said, there is up to 5 minutes that each team can take in order to try and get everything sorted out. So they're just going to wait around and see if they can get Tony back online, which is fantastic. Like, obviously, we want to see Tony able to play here today, and we'll have to see if he is able to do that. But let's talk about Team Luminosity here for just a second. Like we were saying earlier, Vanguard's on his Shaman playing Sham Guards. He was #1 on the ladder very recently, which is a huge accomplishment to be able to pull that off. And Danny Carey, he's always been very, very good at just living through basically anything.
Yeah.
Like, he can survive a nuclear apocalypse. Like, you would find cockroaches in Danny Carey and Twinkies after the nuclear apocalypse, I'm pretty sure.
So, but one of the things to note is that Tony Del Bronx really thinks that they're the dominant turbo cleave, which, warrior enhanced shaman, that's set up. But on the other hand, they have both Vanguards and Smexen, and that's, those two together just do an incredible job. I was hoping for that mirror, but it didn't look like that at the first. Maybe they'll have to switch to that.
Yeah, definitely. So we can now confirm that Luminosity will have taken that first game, so they will be up 1-0 in this match. We're just trying to sort out how Tony Del Bronx wants to continue from here. We're going to go ahead and take a very quick commercial break while we get this sorted out. So hold on just a second, guys. We will be right back with some more action. Welcome back, everybody. We are back live once again. Had a little bit of a delay there as we were sorting out exactly how Team Tony Del Bronx wants to deal with that disconnect issue they have, but it sounds like things are pretty much sorted out at this point. They have gone ahead and chosen their next map, actually, and that's going to be Dollar on Sewers.
Yeah, and we do have the comps locked in, as it does look like Team Luminosity is going to be playing Enhance, Affliction Lock, Resto Druid, which is what we saw last time. But looks like Tony Del Bronx is going to be, wow, looks like Enhance, We're going to have a Resto Druid and an Arms Warrior. So that's an interesting swap. Maybe they were predicting the map change. Like, I would say that they would go into that game being very, very confident, especially at the start. I think they did a great job kind of stopping all the damage out of Shamguards.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Team Luminosity, or excuse me, Team Tony Del Bronx, Super Tease is actually now playing Restoration.
Yeah.
So they had Taz on Restoration in the last game, and now they've had Super Tease swap over from that Balanced Druid over to Restoration Druid. And this is the team that they've had their most success with. Lhasa, Tony Jr., and Super Tease playing Resto Druid. They've won a lot of GCD tournaments with this specific comp. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how well they're able to do with this here. That's often called a Turbo Cleave, the Enhancement Shaman and the Arms Warrior. So we'll have to see how well that works out up against Luminosity's Enhancement Shaman, Affliction Warlock, and Resto Druid on the other side.
And no surprises spec-wise out of anyone. So it's going to be a standard matchup with both teams playing pretty much similar setups. As we're going to have to see if Losa can handle this pressure, because he's going to be the person that can really turn it around for their team out of the gate immediately. Losa looks like he's going to try to get his target. There we go. Now he charges in. Looks like might be Maldiva as the target they'll be going on. Which is interesting. I would expect that they're going to go on the Enhanced the whole time, but looks like no. We got a couple hits on to Danny Carey, but of course, Danny Carey living with no problems throughout this entire tournament and previous tournaments. Wow, looks like Losa really wants to go on Danny Carey. Just killing totems right now, not doing too much by himself as he gets into the mix, taking a bunch of damage, though pretty steady from that Affliction Warlock.
Yeah, I almost wonder if their strategy right now is just to try to spread damage a little bit and see if they can bait any cooldowns out before they decide to switch over and go on to like you said. I think Shamguards will probably be their target of choice here. But the more cooldowns they can get out of Danny Carey onto someone like Maldiva, it will be easier for them to actually swap around onto Shamguards at that point. Of course, Maldiva now into that full Cyclone. Can't do any damage to him during that. Tony Jr. possibly in a little bit of trouble here as Lhasa himself is Cyclone, but no, he's going to be totally fine for right now. Quick stun coming out, and there's a Shockwave as well onto all three members of Team Luminosity into the Cyclone on Maldiva. It looks like they're actually going on Danny Carey right now, trying to get him to use some of those cooldowns, but Danny Carey, like we said earlier, he can live through anything. He's staying extremely cool under pressure, has not used a single defensive cooldown yet.
No, he hasn't, as he's also playing a little risky, just standing out in the middle right now. You know, he did get kind of tripped up behind the pillar where Super Tease was also, but Danny's sitting, kind of playing the field, you know, really pulling back and just tossing those heals out, as you can see. He was doing a great job of just CCing Losa over and over and over. This spread pressure is doing a great job. You know, Maldiva trying to keep those dots up on everyone, including Super Tease, who's starting to take a little bit of damage. He uses a Nature's Vigil in response, as we see oh, there we go, some Shamguards taking a bunch of damage, having to Shaman Rage right there, stopping a little damage too with the Nature's Swiftness out of Danny Carey, but it looks like Danny Carey put himself in a bad position, able to being hit by Losa, who does get bashed. So we do see a Cyclone on to Danny Carey also at this point. So it's a lot of back and forth CC from both of these Druids as you see them standing side by side as that triple Cyclone comes out with another Cyclone onto Shamguards, who is getting really low. That was a great Cyclone right there. Another Nature's Swiftness comes out of Danny Carey, however, picking him back up. Great job by Luminosity.
Yeah, that offensive Cyclone on the Shamguards was also a great move because it did force that Nature's Swiftness out of Danny Carey to top him up as soon as that Cyclone fell off. But now they're trying to turn it around onto Losa. He's taking a little bit of damage, does have that that Iron Bark active for the moment, but that's going to fall off. They're just going to keep up the pressure onto him. Big heal lands onto him. That Nature's Swiftness heal coming out of Super Tease to top Losa back off. Now they're actually trying to turn it around onto Shamguards. They've got him into the full Mighty Bash. They've actually knocked him down out of line of sight of his healer for just a second as well. They might be able to put some pressure onto him here, but Danny Carey being very, very smart with his positioning, going around the correct side of the boxes so that he does not open himself up to any CC. And now it's looking like Tony Del Bronx might be in a little bit of trouble. They've gotten the Shamanistic Rage out as well as the Bark Skin from Super Tease, and Losa is actually having to run away a little bit there with his cooldowns active just to keep himself alive as he now gets put into this Cyclone, is not able to keep up that pressure.
Yeah, that is really bad for Losa, using that long 3-minute cooldown and just being countered on it immediately. Didn't get anything done with it. Super Tease was standing right in the middle as he could have been a target that they swapped onto, but they didn't choose to. So we do see the Shadow Fury coming out to stop Losa's damage. Maldiva doing a great job of keeping himself alive with Losa on his back, as he is even getting damage out right there. Losa forced into defensive for a second, but wow, just back and forth, going from defensive to battle over and over, you know, trying to really gauge if Super T's can keep him alive.
Yep, he does get put into that Cyclone. Super T's down at about 50% health too. Super T's actually into that full Mighty Bash. Not going to be in too much trouble in terms of staying alive, but he will get that Cyclone, which he has to trinket immediately to be able to come over here and drop that Iron Bark onto Losa, help keep Losa alive. It's looking kind of like Losa. No, excuse me. As soon as I say that, Tony Jr. actually in a lot of trouble, having to use that Shamanistic Rage, dipping down to about half health there for just a second. He's going to get Cycloned as soon as he gets back to full health, so that they can start to swap over onto Super T's a little bit. But Supa's being great with his positioning as well, just hugging these boxes the entire time. There's a full Shadow Fury onto all three members of Tony Del Bronx, though. Super T's having to use his Bark Skin out of that, as Shamguards and Maldiva are both just pumping as much damage as they can into him right now. And this is starting to get to be a little bit too much for Super T's to deal with. He's down to 30% mana, and all three members of his team are starting to get kind of low. So as this constant spread pressure from Maldiva continues, this is going to eventually be just too much for Super T's to deal with.
Tony Jr. again getting a little bit low, down to half. Taking some heals from Super T's. Super T's with the Nature's Vigil up right now, trying to stay into bear form, to try to stop a little bit of that damage, but gets bashed by Danny Carey right there. Gonna sit the full bash because he does have those treants up, casting a bunch of heals. Losa taking a bunch of damage. That Spell Reflect comes out, but it's not going to do anything. Maldiva with the Dark Soul up right now, as Losa down to half right now, with no CC onto Super T's just quite yet, but we do have the Cyclone onto Tony Jr., and that's important to off CC this Enhanced Shaman because of how much healing they can put out.
Yeah, and Super T's actually just had to use his Nature Swiftness as well. He does now have his Bark Skin available for himself, but there are no defensive cooldowns that he can use on Losa or Tony Jr. if they get into a little bit of trouble again. So Tony Del Bronx actually feeling a little bit up against the wall at the moment. Tony Jr. taking a lot of fire at the moment. He does not have his Shamanistic Rage available for 20 more seconds. Now the double Shadow Fury coming out. Tony Jr. actually trinkets that. He's trying to stay as offensive as possible and keep on to Shamguards, but Shamguards immediately goes into dog form and runs over here behind these boxes, and he's going to be totally fine.
And this is Tony Jr.'s, if you look, he's just sitting in CC with his Enhance up. That was a great job of Danny Carey, just immediately identifying that the damage was going to come out from there and stopping it. As I say that, Losa down. Look at the health on Super T's. Not only that, look at the mana. 0% mana right now. He's going to have such a struggle. Really needs to get back there and try to get a drink if possible, or his team's just going to die to this affliction damage spread pressure. Danny Carey doing an amazing job of cycloning over and over, as Losa even choosing to Blade Storm while he's extremely low health. Knows they have to stay offensive if they want to make something happen and maybe open up an opportunity for Super T's to go get a drink off.
Yeah, definitely. Tony Jr. did get a big heal onto himself there just a second ago, but Losa and Super T's are both still in a lot of trouble. Losa now looking like the target of choice, down to 30% health. He does get a couple of heals there for just a second, but Super T's now getting low as well. He cannot possibly keep both team members alive, both himself and Losa alive, with basically no mana. He's doing an amazing job thus far. I don't know how they have not died yet. Tony Jr. now getting low as well. That Shadow Fury comes out, the Cyclone onto Super T's. Losa's in a lot of trouble. 20% health on him. The Fear onto Super T's as well. He is somehow still keeping his team members alive through this ridiculous amount of spread damage. His whole team has a full row of dots on it. The Bark Skin comes out from Super T's. Loss is getting so low, down to 20%. He's having to try and Blade Storm just to keep any pressure up at this point, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it. He's so low. Super T's dipping low. He does get the Iron Bark off, but how can he possibly, how are they still alive? How is this team not dead yet? This is a crazy amount of damage coming out from Luminosity.
Yeah, Losa just using almost all of his rage on to shield barriers at this point, down so low on health as he does try to get a shockwave up, but this looks like the Undie by the Sword comes back up. He uses it. Super T's still 0% mana, healing on fumes right now. Execute's coming out from Losa, trying to use those procs effectively as he does try to get over. It looks like their desperation move is to go on to Danny Carey. Super T's getting dangerously low with Shamguards on his back, but look at that. Shamguards knows that once Super T's has to sit back defensively. They can choose to go on a different target, and that one is Tony Jr. down to half right now. He doesn't even have his Sham Rage available at this moment. That's a lot of damage. Again, the spread pressure from Maldiva doing tons of work. Subati's getting a drink off, though. This is huge, but it looks like only a little bit of mana, as Danny Carey did stop that. But again, Tony getting so low. Maldiva's Dark Soul again up as Tony Jr. down to half. That Sham Rage comes back up. He uses it. Subati's using Bark Skin on himself because Shamguards is just chasing him around, blinks away, but the Feral Wolves are still on him. There we go. Now we see a big heal out of Subati's with that Nature's Swiftness. Look at this, just running around in circles, trying to stay alive, but with Enhanced Shaman purging everything off you, it's just rough.
Yeah, I don't know how they're still alive at this point. There's so much. Like, Subati's is some sort of genie keeping his team alive with no mana this entire time. I cannot believe they are still alive. Danny Carey getting a lot of pressure on him at the moment, but he's just running around in bear form. He's just totally fine. Doesn't have to worry about his team at all because the pressure that Tony Del Bronx, they're having to play so defensively at this point. They're just not able to keep up the pressure, and you can tell looking at Danny Carey's mana, still at 50% mana, but somehow or another, Tony Del Bronx's health is actually kind of coming up. Yeah, they're actually kind of turning it around a little bit. They're putting a whole bunch of pressure into Danny Carey. If they can just keep this up a little bit longer, the Iron Bark comes out onto Tony Jr. He's dipping super low, 15% health, 8% health. The Sham Rage comes up. Is it going to be enough? He does get back up to 30% health. I don't know how this team is still alive. This is absolutely ridiculous match right now. But Losa out of nowhere suddenly takes a whole bunch of damage, and that's going to be it. Tony Del Bronx, an amazing, amazing showing there.
That was.
Staying alive for so long, but just not enough to deal with that ridiculous amount of spread pressure from Team Luminosity.
Oh, that was. You know, that came right down to the end right there. I did really like, even though they knew that Subati's was out of mana and they were basically on a ticking time bomb with dampening starting to creep up. It was right around 30% there at the end. But you saw that when that happened, they immediately knew if we can kill Danny Carey in this, we can win. And we saw a lot of cooldowns forced out of Danny Carey by both Losa and Tony Jr. there. So great job, Tony Del Bronx fighting right to the end.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also a great match to really show just the strength of that spread pressure from the Affliction Warlock. Maldiva did 17 million damage over the course of that match. It was a relatively long match as far as matches have been going lately. I don't remember exactly how long it was. I think it was about 7 or 8 minutes, something like that. But 17 million damage, that's a really big number. By comparison, Tony Jr. did 11 million in that match. So just a ridiculous amount of spread pressure. That does mean that Team Luminosity will be moving on over Tony Del Bronx. That's going to be a 2-0 victory for them. And in fact, if we can take a look at the brackets here very, very shortly. There we go. We're going to take a look here. That does mean that Luminosity will be moving on to round 2, the round of 4. That will be a best of 5. And this next match coming up, Tempo Storm versus Hands Up. This is going to be a good match to watch.